Okay. All right. So good evening, afternoon. I am Lewana Harris, and I am the CEO of Skymax Business Strategies, where we enlighten, encourage, and empower you to live to your fullest potential. And we are here this afternoon with Dr. Esther Jackson. Hey, Dr. Jackson.
Hey, Lewana.
Hey. And we are here and we're talking this afternoon about this book that she has written for ATD. And ATD is called the Association for Talent Development. And it's a national organization for those that are in the talent development field. Well, basically any field that you are wanting to be developed in, you have the skills, or you wanting to develop those skills to be a better presenter, better facilitator, all types of different resources that they have for you to develop professionally, personally. ATD is the organization to go to. You may want to check out, there may be a local chapter where you are, but there's also, again, like I said, the national membership. And so if you are a member of the local chapter and a member of the national chapter, you are what we call a power member. So power members are the best. We want to make sure that you become that power member because you get extra resources, you get extra reports, you get extra information, you get the inside scoop. So that is something that we definitely promote. However, like I said, we're here with Dr. Esther, and we're talking about adaptability. Sorry about that. We're talking about adaptability in talent development. So thank you all for joining. Thank you for watching. If you're catching this on the replay, catching the recording, this is still going to be like you're here. So we're just going to have a conversation. And Dr. Esther, you want to go ahead and tell us a little bit about you before we get into this interview here?
Sure. So happy to be here with you and your audience, Lewana, virtually. As far as what I do and what I have going on, again, that was an awesome plug you put in for ATD. So love my ATD, I have to say. Currently, I work in the Metro Detroit area in the state of Michigan. I am a project manager. I've been doing that for a good maybe 5 to 7 years or so, as well as doing some instructional design work and local and national presenting at various conferences and events. And so part of my background includes working in human resources. And then within the presentations that I do, they typically cover topics such as, with the book topic, of course, as you mentioned, adaptability, leadership, emotional intelligence, change management, DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, and a few other topics. But those have been the latest, most popular topics I've been doing. Outside of that, other than the writing, doing a few articles here or there, the book has had me pretty busy since it has just come out within the last month and a half. And other than that, I enjoy the work I do as a volunteer with ATD. At the local level, as you mentioned, we do have a number of chapters across the United States. Within the Detroit area, we do have a Detroit chapter. That is what took me in the direction of the local chapter with some experiences I had going on, which I do share in the book. And so I went through a number of titles with the Detroit chapter, and now I am ending my term as past president for ATD Detroit. And then I also serve on the national level as a national advisor for chapters, which essentially means that I help support chapter leaders within other locations. And so the states that I'm responsible for include chapter leaders who are in Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin, and Kentucky.
Nice. So you are busy. You are busy, and that's good busy. Just a little bit, right? So Esther and I we met a few years ago at one of our ATD conferences, and we literally hit it off. So this is going to literally be a conversation, and it is going to be just us talking. But at the same time, she's going to be able to give you some I'm not even say tricks, but some tips on how to adapt and this whole idea of adaptability. And let's go into that first question because I do want to get into it. And so in the introduction of your book, And I said it's called Adaptability and Talent Development. But in the introduction, you title a section that's called Adaptability is the New Game Changer. Okay. That's like you mentioned that, you talk about it. So why is adaptability so important right now? And why even write about it? Like why is that important?
Well, that's the deal breaker right there. That's definitely a trigger point question.
Uh-huh.
And the reason I say that it's definitely a game changer. If we look at what we've experienced, not just in the past couple of years, but how we've seen the pace of technology advancing, how we've seen businesses, organizations have to do a turnaround across industries, even in e-commerce, what we're seeing with like Amazon and other organizations. And the cycling that's going on with those who maybe have to reinvent themselves, or even those who have to restructure and redesign.
Right.
Well, it comes down to those are some similar things that we need to practice on an individual level. And when we think about adaptability, many don't realize, even though it's something we have to do as human beings, that we've learned from birth to adapt is something that comes natural. It's also something that requires intentionality in terms of how we do it personally as well as professionally in the workplace. Adaptability is simply our ability to respond to unplanned change, unexpected conditions, new conditions.
Right.
And it's something that's totally distinguished from change management. Because with adaptability, that unplanned change, those unexpected conditions, the uncertainty, those are things we didn't see coming. Right. And it's not an easy thing for someone to face. And so when we say it's a game changer, it is, because it's also looking at, hey, when I face this change, when I deal with what I didn't expect, and I'm able to not just be resilient, but still be productive, still perform. What am I doing to not just get back to where I was, but to do better, to see what can't be seen? What am I doing to look down to see how I can be future ready, how I can prepare myself to be ready for the next change that I don't know what it will be, what it will look like when it's coming. So it's definitely a game changer, and I'll definitely shed more light on some of the skills that come with that as we talk more.
Yeah, and I really like that word. You said intentionality, and so that's one of my favorite words. I feel like you have to be intentional about just about everything in your life if you want to be successful. You have to be intentional about how you raise your children. You have to be intentional about building relationships, networking, and even with your position. And I'm glad you talked about change management, because sometimes you can think about, oh, this is, adaptability is just change and adapting to change. Well, change management, I think what I see is it's a situation that's coming that you can actually prepare for. For example, we had a situation where we in my company, we were implementing a new process. Well, you're teaching change management because you know the process, this thing is coming, and you can prepare for that. And as a leader, you can prepare others for that change management process. But adaptability is something totally different. It's something that you may not have control over. I think you mentioned that it's not always something that you have control over. So you have to be, that resilience is huge. I love that word. It's one of my favorite words. And so I love how you talked about that. But when we talk about adaptability, even in the workplace, like why is that an important skill for success? Whatever success looks like for you, for anyone. So why is that even important? Why does it matter in the workplace?
Great question. So with adaptability, we can really look at it as representing an umbrella of skills. So there are quite a few skills that I call out in the book that fall under the adaptability domain, if you want to look at it that way. One being the ability to be flexible, and be versatile, being able to pivot. Can you change when something arises that was unexpected? You didn't plan for this. This is not a part of the game plan.
Right.
Or do you falter? You just fall apart. Are you one who can handle the stress of a situation where we need to regroup, we need to revamp, we need to rethink what moving forward looks like. So many organizations, so many of us individually, almost everybody has had to do that in light of COVID. COVID is not the only unexpected change that has come our way.
Right.
We face it, as you mentioned, day to day on an ongoing basis. And so other skills that fall within that would be your ability to be innovative. Can you rethink
That's good.
something that is a part of a process in your organization and maybe look at how you can collaborate with others to brainstorm, to create that think tank to come up with something else? Are you one who's interested and engaged enough to maybe look at, let's think about what's best suited to the end user or to the client? Do we need to apply some design thinking to look at how we can be more empathetic, to see it from this vantage point as, rather than our vantage point? So it's geared to what's going to satisfy or meet that pain point for the other person. Are you one who is able to be a critical thinker? Are you one who's willing to take risks? All of those are examples, entrepreneurship, or even looking at strategic thinking. All of those feed into what goes into adaptability, because we're talking about being able to respond, not just react, but respond in the moment and be successful and still thrive. It's one thing to be resilient and bounce back, which is partially why I can't really get where when people talk about going back to normal, I don't see that.
Right.
It's about the new normal. It's about getting back, being resilient, but we need to go beyond where we were.
Absolutely.
We don't want to just get back where we were.
Yeah.
The covers have been pulled off. Things have been unveiled.
Absolutely.
That we already had issues. COVID just helped to shed light on that. But we already had work that needed to be done. And so now it's a matter of, what do you do with that awareness now? How do you equip yourself to be ready for change in an ongoing fashion? And leadership look to you to be a leader, or to be one who's a part of the workforce, to create that culture where people feel comfortable putting ideas out there and sharing, taking a risk that something might be rejected, and okay, let me go back to the drawing board. That didn't work. Let's try something else.
Right. Yeah. And that is so, I mean, you just gave, like, we could probably just shut it down right now, because you just gave so many different skills that, and I'm gonna go back and watch the replay myself, because you just gave so many skills that if you are in a position right now around, and you're thinking like, what else can I be skilled in? What else do I need to do to develop? What else do I need to do to expand and to excel in my career? You just gave a whole list of things that you can do. And you talk about it like you talk about all of those things in the book. Adaptability. When you talk about just not bouncing back. No, we're not bouncing back. We're not going back to the way things, whatever normal is. We're not doing that. And this is and I'm so glad that you talked about, like, this is such a great time to develop all of those things that you just mentioned. So again, if you're in a position, if you're listening and you're watching and you're in a position, she just gave a whole list of different things that you could become skilled in to make sure that you excel in your career. And so, and that's definitely huge when you're wanting to grow. And so on the flip side of that, we talked about resilience. We talked about, moving forward, and we're not going back. Of course, we're not going back to normal. But what are some of those barriers? So anytime, and this has just been, if you've ever taken any type of psychology, social, whatever it is that deals with the mind, deals with how people operate, you know that anytime that you are trying to grow, anytime that you're trying to get ahead, there's some barriers, right? There's some things that are going to come. But you mentioned a few barriers to adaptability. So you said sometimes problematic attitudes and mindsets, that can be a barrier to going forward into adaptability. Leadership and workplace culture, and giving into distraction. So can you provide an example of actually what those look like and how those can be barriers, and what do we need to do to overcome each one of those? And of course you can add any other barrier, but those are just a few that you mentioned in your book.
All right, you may have to reel me back in, Lewana. So with the problematic attitude,
This is just a
and
discussion, so we're good. You're good to go.
so definitely with the problematic attitudes and a mindset, that growth mindset, we can't say enough about that
Right.
because it still holds true what we've read and what we see and what we have likely experienced.
Yeah.
When you overcome something mentally, it's a matter of expecting it to manifest. I've dealt with a job loss. I've dealt with having to face rejection for a project, having to face something that didn't work out with a client contract. I've dealt with having something decline, even personally, rejections that we've dealt with. Do you allow that to grip you to a point where you're paralyzed from future opportunities or even keeping a positive outlook on situations? Are you one where you are quick to say, maybe in a work situation, you talked about the change that in some instances may be identified for an organization to institute and you have to put in place change management? Are you one who responds with, oh my goodness, this again?
Right.
No, you remember what happened last time.
Right.
Oh boy, well, you know how Lewana is. This is doomed for failure.
Right.
So those types of mindsets.
Yeah.
Are you gripped with, why do we have to change? It's been working fine. Why do we need to reinvent the wheel? Sometimes the wheel needs to be reinvented. Sometimes it's not about reinventing the wheel, but how can we look at, hey, I have some ideas to be more innovative where this wheel can work better.
Right.
Are we too afraid of even being disruptive? We hear and read about the need for people who are willing to be the disruptors, not create confusion and chaos. There's a difference. We're talking about those who are willing to question it, to push back and say, hey, well, let's rethink this. Things are working well, but how can we make things work better? Are you one who's faced rejection, even with a job? Maybe I had to do a presentation recently for business owners and talking about, hey, are you conscious and are you taking a pulse to the needs of your clients, the needs of your customers? Are you expecting that things are selling okay? They should be good. They should be okay with the product. I don't have any complaints.
Yeah.
Should that be something that keeps you from looking at opportunity to seize the moment or looking at opportunity to reevaluate what can you do better? How can you bring it up a few notches? Or are you just stuck in that comfort zone where you feel like you don't want to rock the boat? Those are some of the problematic attitudes and opportunities to look at the mindset change that's needed for the growth mindset to become more evident. When you think about a few other distractions, the leadership and the culture, are folks made to feel psychologically safe? Are we giving opportunity for diverse work styles, diverse approaches to projects, to task completion? That feeds into the DEI, and that's also where we have DEI overlapping with adaptability. Are people made to feel that they can step out and take a risk? They can step up and accept accountability without feeling like they're going to get backlash. They're going to receive blame. They're going to be penalized. They're going to be made to feel like they're incompetent. If that psychological safety isn't present, that's impeding the adaptability for the organization, which I refer to, because it's been put out there by others before me, like Paul Stokes. It's referred to as the measure of an organization's or an individual's adaptability. And we call that the adaptability quotient or the adversity quotient. So that's your measure. Just like you talk about one's EQ, which is their measure of emotional intelligence. But we have a measure of adaptability. And our goal should always be, what am I doing to shoot for and to develop my adaptability so I can have a high AQ? But there's also the high AQ organizations that we want to promote. And that begins with leaders. Leaders, if they're promoting that culture of adaptability, where people feel like they are allowed to make mistakes. People feel like they are allowed to share ideas. even if I'm not a senior leader?
Right.
Will my idea be considered? And then also looking at what kind of support do individuals receive, like if they need to work from home,
Mm-hmm.
if they are not comfortable yet returning to the office and they have that opportunity, they have that luxury of being able to choose
Right.
because they are not COVID comfortable yet.
Right.
That also speaks to adaptability as well as the type of culture that the organization is promoting.
Right.
And then finally, other distractions would be things like the imposter syndrome.
Mm.
If you're not familiar with the imposter syndrome, are you
Yep.
one who says, oh, I don't know how that happened? It's just dumb luck. I really shouldn't have gotten it. Or, well, it was a freak accident and it just happened to pick me.
Right.
I don't know how my proposal was chosen for me to speak at the ATD conference. Oh my goodness, I really didn't deserve it. But yes, I did. Do you know how
Yes.
hard I worked on this?
Exactly. And I think, you know what, and with that imposter, because I go through it myself. And I think if you have gone through or gotten to any type of level of success, again, whatever success looks like for you, if you've accomplished any type of goals that you have wanted in your life, that imposter syndrome likes to creep up in there. I'm like, I don't know what, it was just the luck of the draw, or, oh, no, I worked hard. Like you said, I worked hard on this. I was able to sacrifice time, and I built skills. I networked. I connected with people. I wrote emails. I sat there. Whatever you had to do, like, no, you did that. Like, you really did that. And so that,
And you bring up a valid point because
yeah,
that's exactly how I would say to take steps to counter that. Go through, and it's something that even I
yeah,
absolutely love John Maxwell, and he
absolutely.
promotes it in his book No Limits. When
Mm,
you feel like you don't know how to accept a compliment, or you are dealing with that attack, that self-attack, and you don't have the positive mindset you need to have for yourself, how do you help build that?
yeah,
Look at just what you said, those accomplishments.
yeah.
Start making note of what you've
Mhm.
done well. Stop
Yep,
putting the spotlight on things that have not gone well, or where
absolutely.
you've made mistakes, or where you face rejection. We
Mm,
all get rejected about something,
right.
but the rejection,
That is,
I consider it to be something along these lines. Your
yeah.
reflection on your rejection can lead to your revelation. And
Say
so
that
that's
again.
something.
Say that again. Say that again.
Reflection on rejection can lead to revelation, because I
Mm,
gain insights when I look at maybe some things behind why I was rejected, or what was communicated, or the feedback I received with the rejection. Some was warranted, some may not have been warranted, but they are all
yeah.
lessons learned for me if I take it
Mm-hmm.
and use it. And some help us to be propelled to another level where we have an even higher AQ as a result of that rejection.
Mm-hmm.
How
Mm-hmm.
many businesses were started because of that? How
Right.
many ended up in positions and landed with work positions for the organization that was meant for them?
Right.
I can attest to that. I've experienced that.
Yeah.
And actually, the book was one that was a result of a far back rejection. And I talk about that in the book.
Mm-hmm.
I had to
Mm-hmm.
do an article for something in a job I was in, and it was rejected, and I was asked to redo it. And it was dealing with AQ, which I thought was just the most wonderful topic ever, leadership AQ. But
Yes, it is.
I was asked to not put so much emphasis there and go with something else. So I thought there was still value in that article, Lewana. Like, I wasn't ready to throw it out as trash just because it
Mm-hmm.
received that rejection. So I put it to the side. Lo and behold, it was something that I submitted to be published somewhere. The article was published. Less than a year later, from that article, I received a tap on the shoulder virtually
Right.
speaking.
Right.
Asked, hey, would you be interested in doing a book? Because they saw that article. Had
Wow.
no
Yeah.
idea that was coming. But it was just a matter of, I felt like there was value in something that
Yeah.
someone else didn't see value in. And are you able to do that with your own skill set, with your own work?
That's
How
good.
often do you contribute ideas unsolicited? Or
Mhm.
even if you aren't putting out those ideas, are you even capturing those ideas? Are you
Mhm.
maintaining your own portfolio of your work whenever you need to go back to it and maybe build upon it?
That's
Pat
good.
yourself on the back as needed. And
Right.
I'm talking about having your nose in the air, or
Right.
the head above the clouds like everybody else is for you to walk on. But I mean,
Right.
you need to be your biggest fan.
Absolutely.
Someone
Absolutely.
else should not always have to boost you
Mhm.
up and
Mhm.
pick you up and pat you on the back.
Mhm.
Sometimes,
Mhm.
Lewana, you need to be your biggest fan.
Yeah.
You need to be your biggest promoter.
Absolutely. And I think, one of the things that I teach is that, you know, yes, your leaders are supposed to support your development, but you are in charge of your development. And we have to, so when you're talking about adaptability, we have to adapt our mindset, because I think for so long we're some of us have thought that, well, my leader, they're the ones that's supposed to go out and advocate for me, and they're supposed to go out and do this. I mean, yes, they support in that way, but you have to be your own advocate. You have to be your own, like, raise your own voice. You have to say, okay, what is it that I want to accomplish? What do I really want to do? And I'm actually, I'm going through that right now. Like, we talked about it. I'm going through that. Like, okay, what does that look like? And so just adapting your mindset, overcoming the mindset of that, having that fixed mindset, and just being able to grow beyond where you are. Think about, what are those things that I want to do? Who do I need to connect with? What other skills can I learn? All of those things are tied to adaptability and being flexible. And I think we talked about a little bit about agility. Being able to be in that space is really going to help push your career even further. So I'm so glad that we're talking about this topic. So going back to, I think you talked a little bit about emotional intelligence and EQ. But in your there's an article that you also wrote that's on this ATD, but it's also on this, it's on the same topic. So it's on adaptability. And even in the book you talked about, you mentioned DEI, interpersonal communication, and emotional intelligence as a few key connections to adaptability that are sometimes overlooked. So these are key points, diversity, equity, and inclusion, interpersonal. These are things that may be overlooked when we're talking about adaptability. So why do you think these particular topics are overlooked so much when we're, specifically talking about adaptability?
For one, I would say I see them being overlooked. One reason for that would be I see it as an aspect of we really don't understand what adaptability is. And sometimes we don't understand what actually goes into diversity, equity, and inclusion,
Mm,
and the need for adaptability to be at the heart of it.
mhm.
How many years have we been dealing with diversity? We've
Right.
gone through dealing with, of course, from previous years to what it looks like in the workplace to diversity awareness. Years ago, I was doing diversity and discrimination. I
Uh,
had to do diversity awareness training,
mhm.
and I had to develop some programs. I did some off the shelf programs. They've gone through so many different names in so many different phases. And now we are at a point where it's still evolving.
Right.
And we're still looking at how do we appreciate diversity. And
Right.
now we've branched out to see it's not just about diversity, it's not just what we see, but it's also adjusting and adapting to differences in roles and how everyone contributes,
Mm,
adapting to differences in ages and how we treat other
mhm,
people, how we
mhm.
show respect for other individuals, regardless of their level in an organization, how we give opportunity and represent inclusion and equity when it comes to individuals maybe who have been disenfranchised.
Right.
All of that is about, are we willing to deal with change that was unexpected, unplanned, a situation that's new to us, and adjust? And with emotional intelligence, and for anyone who's not aware, the book was published by ATD and it is a part of a 5 book series
Mhm,
for soft skills. So it's
mhm.
ATD soft skills series, and
Yeah.
emotional intelligence is also one of the topics that
Mhm.
has been published along with mine. And so I was actually, Lewana, more familiar with emotional intelligence, like a lot of other people, versus adaptability
Okay.
maybe 2 years ago when I started doing a bit of research. I was already doing behavioral profile training for some leadership and supervisory management classes I was doing. And so I did a bit of a deeper dive and became very passionate about emotional intelligence. And it was one day I heard a speaker talk about emotional intelligence and adaptability. And curiosity, that is another skill under adaptability.
Yeah.
I wanted to learn more. I wanted to know more.
Right.
For myself, well, if I'm doing leadership development and
Right.
talking about leadership in my presentations, I need to know what this adaptability thing is in
Right.
relation to change management and how it's distinguished from change management.
Yeah.
So I did a bit of a deeper dive, a bit of research, only to find we have so much on emotional intelligence and so little on adaptability or adversity. Why? And from there, that is what sparked my interest and desire to start writing articles and to start comparing the two, looking at the relationship between emotional intelligence and adaptability, and then writing on adaptability.
Gotcha.
So with emotional intelligence, I really appreciate Dr. Daniel Goleman's
Yeah.
EQ model, or his emotional intelligence model. And for those who are familiar with it, we know it's based on 4 quadrants.
Right.
You have a quadrant that deals with your self-awareness,
Right.
being mindful of what pushes your buttons,
Right.
you know, how your confidence level is. Are you
Yeah.
one who kind of cringes in certain situations?
Right.
Are you one you don't know why when a certain person comes in the room, they just rub you the wrong way?
Right.
You really don't know? Okay, you need to understand
You need to know
something
that
about yourself.
self-awareness piece, right? Yes.
Right, you need that. And then we have the social awareness quadrant, where
Right.
you are able to empathize with others. You are service oriented.
Yes.
That is also the quadrant, that social awareness, that is also the quadrant where DEI falls within there. And then we get to the relational quadrant, or relationship management quadrant.
Right.
And for that one, that's dealing with your ability to coach others, mentor others, build relationships, draw and influence others. And then the final one is the self-control. So we mentioned the self-awareness quadrant, but there is one for self-control. So with self-awareness, do you know what presses your buttons? Do you know who rubs you the right way, who rubs you the wrong way?
Right.
But with the self-control quadrant, that's dealing with, once your button has been pressed, can you pull yourself back?
Exactly.
Or can you keep yourself from flying off the handle? Well, what's surprising to some people is that's also the quadrant where adaptability is evident.
Okay.
So adaptability is in that self-control quadrant, because how many times do we falter or, just caving and can't deal with situations where something has happened?
Right.
Something happened to the car, something happened to the house. You just lose it.
Right.
So definitely we understand some things can be so catastrophic.
Right.
But when it comes to things that are not at the level of a catastrophe or a crisis,
right,
how are you able to keep a level set? How are you able to keep yourself composed and controlled? And when others think of you, do they think of someone who's controlled, who is able to exhibit, they function well under pressure? When you're in a hot seat, Lewana can handle herself.
Yeah.
Is that a part of your brand? Is that what people see about you and your behavior, regardless of what kind of talk you put out there?
Yeah, and that is so good, because I'm really glad that, because EQ, emotional intelligence, is one of my favorite, as kids say, my favorite is one of my favorite topics, because you have so many people that, and I'm glad how I'm so excited, like how you put the adaptability in that self-control piece, because I think people tend to forget that. Yes, and sometimes you may not know what pushes your button, but if you don't know, you need to, like you said, you need to know, because that's at a self-awareness piece. But that self-behavior and self-management of now that I know this, now that now I know what pushes my buttons, now I know how I'm feeling in the moment, right? Then I can adapt my mindset. We talked about that. we can adapt the mindset, and now I can control my behavior to manage the empathy part of it and to manage those relationships that are really important to me. And I'm so,
Exactly.
I mean, that is huge. And if you don't have the skill of emotional intelligence, Dr. Esther, she talks about this, the different assessments that you can actually take to find out like what is your strongest area, what's your strongest area in EQ, emotional intelligence, and what are those areas that you really need to work on. So I would definitely encourage you all to go out. Assessments are very good. It's just it's not an explanation of everything about you, but it is a starting point to think about, okay, what are some of the things that I'm dealing with? What are some of those that it's like a framework and a starting point for your development. So it may not explain everything. You have your personality assessments, you have your behavioral assessments, you have all of those different things. Google them, search them, pick which one that's best for you, and like just be self-aware. That's all you can do. Just be self-aware.
And Lewana, just to add to that,
Yeah.
also get feedback from others.
Yes.
Ask someone else.
Yes.
And sometimes we don't necessarily have to ask others, Lewana. People have told us how we are. And in addition, do some self-reflection. You know how you handle certain situations.
Absolutely.
We are quick to say, oh, child, you know how that bothers me. Oh, my goodness. When I'm in my sweet spot, I just go at it.
Yeah.
That is when I'm working in my vein. We know ourselves.
Yes.
Do some intentional reflection to think about what causes you to thrive in the heat of the moment. Think about how have you performed when you faced a challenge that you didn't see coming? How have you performed, or how productive have you been when it came to a situation where something was thrown at you or placed in your lap that you really didn't have time or really didn't have the means to address, so you did it.
Yeah.
Think about what it takes for you to continue moving forward to do things differently if you didn't like what the turnout was.
Right. That's good.
Unlike what in a few of my presentations, what I cover, one as what I did for ATD just recently in August was leading with the right cues. And I do that particular topic and bring out the strong suits with the EQ and the AQ, emotional intelligence and adaptability, and looking at how you can build those so you have a high EQ and a high AQ.
Absolutely.
Whereas I also bring in IQ because IQ is something that has been around much longer. And I talk about the longevity of all three. But what's surprising is for us to learn that IQ is something, once your IQ gets to be a certain point, a certain level, it is what it is.
Yeah.
It may increase maybe a point or so, not too much. But with your AQ and your EQ, you can always develop them.
Absolutely.
I am still working on mine. It's nothing that I've mastered just because I talk about it. It's ongoing. There are always changes coming my way that I didn't see coming, that definitely had me uncertain of what lies ahead. But it's also a matter of how ready am I? How much am I in the mode of being future ready for that ongoing change? Not that it's circling back around, but it's constant. It's dynamic. And am I able to still thrive even with dynamic change? My sister is one that will tell you and tell me in a heartbeat my areas that I need to work on. So our besties, our siblings, our family members, some of them don't hesitate. Now, some of them may be a bit off because they have a bit bias when they're giving us their opinion.
Yes, right, exactly.
But consider the feedback and then take what may help you and look at what's constructive.
You can't
always use things based on someone's intention. But take them at face value and look and see what you can take and harness, regardless of intention. But as you mentioned, getting those assessments, doing your own reflection, getting feedback from others, and then just taking time to look at moving forward. Where do I see myself doing things differently? And so there is a model that I have in the book called the ADAPT model, where I walk through those particular steps and what you want to do to really take to heart and be intentional, as we mentioned, about what you do to build yourself up for that high level, that high AQ.
Absolutely. And that's good, because my next question was going to be, what can somebody take? Like, so they're watching this now, and I think you basically just answered the question about what can people, you're so good. Because you're right in tune with just kind of how everything is flowing. So I was going to ask kind of, what can people do right now? What can they implement? And I think you just gave some ways that they can further their adaptability skills. Look at those assessments, look at getting feedback from other people, doing that self-reflection. And I think we have all been in that spot of the self-reflection piece and really looking at, okay, what do I have internally going on right now? What is my current mindset, and where are some of those areas, and what do I need to change? So I think we've all been there, and it takes some time, and it's not always pretty. It's not always a good feeling to literally sit down and say, man, you know what? I really am a horrible communicator. I really am somebody, like, for me, emotional intelligence, I love emotional intelligence. I, teach on it, train on it. But when it comes to my children, that EQ goes out the door. Like it really does. When I don't know EQ when it comes to my kids. I don't even know what emotional intelligence is when it comes, of course I'm exaggerating, but I'm just saying there's certain situations where it literally goes out the door. But
that is such a great point.
Yes.
My apologies for interrupting.
Oh, no, you're fine.
You sparked something with that. That took some self-awareness to recognize, because I think about the same thing.
Yes.
In this situation, maybe when someone's giving me a compliment, do I light up and do I just go off and talk about, oh, well, since they were positively receptive to this, let me share more. And then if someone is not so receptive to something, you shut down.
Yes. Yeah.
And just listen. I'm not sharing anything else.
Right.
Did you hear what he said?
Yeah.
I see how much they appreciate what I have to say. So is that something that can easily kind of prick your ego, or, easily cause you to go in another direction?
Yes.
Where that level of sensitivity can really impede your adaptability. And like you mentioned, it's a matter of us all recognizing those situations, as well as those areas where we have opportunity. But to go back to your question, I would definitely say the initial step would be looking at what you tell yourself. Reflect on your mindset. I remember the year I was working for a certain organization, and they wanted us to review. We had someone from Dale Carnegie approach us about becoming a client. So they allowed me to go through the program, one of their initial programs, for 12 weeks to see how we liked it. One thing that I remember that I will cherish, first of all, I still have my golden book from being, they reprinted it and everything, but I still have the golden book. Okay? I'm still working on a few of them, like don't guys condemn or complain. That's like number one or something. Still working on a few.
Right.
But what I will say is they took quite a bit of time in one or more sessions to walk you through how to accept the compliment. Just something
wow.
Oh, I like that. Oh, this old thing. Well, I've had it for a number of years. Oh, I really need to throw it out. Just don't know how to accept the compliment.
Just say thank you.
Kind of the imposter syndrome.
Right.
Oh, you did such a great job on that project. Oh, well, it wasn't just me. It was so and so. Well, I just took what someone else. Take the compliment.
Oh, yeah.
Learn how to say thank you.
Just say thank you.
Let it go. Just thank you.
Right.
If additional explanation is warranted, pause before you share. But say thank you, and don't feel like you have to explain or justify yourself.
That's good.
It's not being humble when you try to downplay a compliment. And that was something that was really, really valuable from that training. It covered quite a bit that I really love. But that is something that stuck with me, that I was able to leverage and bring into a number of these presentations that I did.
Got you. And that is so awesome. So, just development, like we talked about the self-awareness piece, knowing where you are personally, and it's not too much to go out and find that free stuff to develop, right? It's not too much. It doesn't take a whole lot of time. There's so many different resources. And again, when you're trying to adapt or trying to learn different skills to further your career level of success. And so, we're coming to a close, but I do want to make sure that I touch on this because this was one of my favorite parts, as I said before, in this area of, okay, developing what skills, what's next type of situation for me. But you talked about adapting your career. Let's talk about that a little bit because that's a section that's in your book that you spent like a whole chapter on. And when I tell you all, like mine is underlined and written on the side and writing notes, and it literally it kind of got me emotional because it was so good and it's so helpful to think about when you're adapting in your career, what does that look like? What do you need to do? So I want you to really specifically, there's a tool in there that's called your adaptability level up for progress essentials, and you call it the loop. I love it. I love it. So talk a little bit about that. Like talk about that and how we can use that tool to advance our careers. And then we'll, close out. But I wanted to I definitely wanted to touch on that.
Certainly. So with the adaptability loop, that is something, and so glad, I appreciate the feedback. I'm so glad you got so much out
Yeah.
of that particular chapter as well as the tool. I really appreciate that feedback, Lewana.
Yeah.
What I will say is that's something that I actually use myself. I look at where I'm failing to take advantage of opportunities or missed opportunities where I'm not really mindful of how I can look at connecting with other folks in other business areas where my services are impacted within my organization.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at situations where I need to come out of my comfort zone
Yeah.
and see how to expose myself to other parts of the business. Or even looking at, are you limiting yourself to just connecting with people who are your immediate colleagues? What are you doing to really understand maybe more about the pain points of others who maybe even if they are not clients, could be potential clients?
Right.
If you are one who is in the midst of a job search, I've done that within the last couple of years,
Yeah.
had to search for new opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
One main thing I was looking at is how am I building myself up to move beyond whether it be with the technology I've been exposed to, the technology that I'm using. You just said it yourself, Lewana. There is so much out there that is free. We have no excuse. Whether it be a TED talk, whether it be looking at a YouTube video to get filled up, whether it be looking at a community of practice where I need to get myself involved. How active am I on LinkedIn? How active am I with looking at who else is out there on LinkedIn and all of the free opportunities for skill enhancement available? And even beyond LinkedIn, you have so many other MOOCs as well as other organizations that offer tons of things for free.
Absolutely.
And then let's not forget, we have the Association for Talent Development.
I'm just saying.
Our local ATD chapters. We are willing and ready to help you.
I'm serious. Yes.
So we have it definitely there. And when we talk about leveling up, we're talking about always taking it to another level. Yeah. We're talking about looking at where your skills are now, but also looking at where you want to be. And then taking it to the point of where does it look like the industry is going? Where does it look like my field is going? Am I thinking about what it looks like down the road? Am I reading about where it looks like things are going? And talent development, that's something that I'm looking at. How we are leveraging machine learning. How AI, artificial intelligence is being used. Virtual reality, augmented reality. How maybe I need to look at ways to think about within my own organization? Is there something that I can read, something I've done previously to see how it can help us to be more innovative with what we already have going on
Right.
in our current practices, our current way of work, our current methodologies?
Right. Right.
And it all relates as well to you building your value proposition. I went through
Love
a
it.
training. I have to give Mr. Hayward Suggs a plug for this. He was a past president for ATD Chicagoland. And
Okay.
I went to a conference where he did a session and he had us go through an exercise with the value proposition. And I heard about it before. I had never done an exercise with it.
Okay.
From that exercise, one of the things he had us do was come up with our elevator pitch.
Mm-hmm.
And from that elevator pitch about what I had to offer, what I could do for someone else in addressing their pain points, that was what I came up with, a people potential accelerator. And it stuck. And I started calling myself that. And I love it. And I'm keeping it. And that's the last thing I want to tell you about it, Lewana.
What's
So
that?
it's on my LinkedIn to stay until further notice.
Say that one more time. What is it again?
Esther Jackson is the People Potential Accelerator.
There you go.
I don't have my elevator pitch right now, but I had a pretty impressive elevator pitch when I shared this, where he had us do the exercise.
Oh man, I love it. I love it because the thing about it is, if you have that, that's kind of like your mission statement, right? Your vision statement. And
not quite.
That's not it. Okay.
And yes. So I talk about that in the book. So I need everyone to check the book out, because people equate that to, oh, my value proposition is just my mission statement and my vision. And it's a bit more than that. Your mission statement and your vision are good starting points.
Yes.
But they are not your value proposition.
Got you. I can agree with that. I can definitely agree with that. Yes, ma'am. Well, I am so glad that you said yes to my proposition to you to do this interview. I am so glad that we had this opportunity to chit chat and to talk a little bit, and just to share with the people that are watching and that are going to watch in the future. Just understanding again how adaptability is so important. We talked about so much, but you talked about so much in the book. And when I tell you that this is definitely a guide for you, again, if you are in a position where you're trying to figure out your next move, you're trying to figure out what is my next step, you are trying to figure out how do I adapt in this new world? Because again, we talked about we're not going back to normal. We're not going back to the way things used to be. So if you don't have the skill of adaptability, you will fall behind and you will be left behind. We talked about, just so many things, and she has so many tools in the book that will help you gain the skill of adaptability. So I would definitely encourage you to go out and get the book. How can people contact you, Dr. Esther? How can they get in touch with you? How can they contact you? How can they purchase the book? So give us all of that information.
For sure. Thank you for the opportunity. Definitely encourage everyone, check it out. You can connect with me via LinkedIn. My website is a work in progress at this time, but please look for me under Dr. Esther Jackson on LinkedIn. Happy to connect. Would love to hear from you. And feel free to even share comments, feedback, or other thoughts that you have along the lines of adaptability or even something else that touches on the topic. I'd love to hear it. And then for the book, Adaptability and Talent Development, as well as the other topics in the series, check it out on Amazon. You can look for Esther Jackson. You can look for Adaptability and Talent Development, and you will find me. Look for the gray book.
Yep.
The one when I first had the book and had it as a hard copy in hand, I had to post my own selfie with it and say, I think I may look good in green after all.
It does. I love the green. I love the green book. Yeah, I love it, and it is definitely, it fits it. It fits that topic. So this is awesome. All right.
Well, I had no choice in the color.
Oh, you didn't have.
I made it work once I saw it. It's like we're gonna do it. Thank you, ATD.
Right. That's it. The book is written. It's done now. It's done. All right. So thank you again. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you all for watching. Again, I'm Lewana Harris, and you can also contact or get in touch with me on LinkedIn as well under Lewana Harris. I'm also on Facebook, and I even have a little TikTok, y'all. I'm because
Okay.
again, so you
That's
talk
some
about
adaptability, Lewana.
I'm
Okay.
just saying, hey, look, I'm trying to adapt, right? I'm trying to adapt in this social media world. But I will tell you, so you talked about developing yourself. When I tell you, I have learned so much on TikTok. Seriously,
Really?
yes, like there's so many people out there with so much knowledge. I mean, it's funny too, and it definitely lifts my spirits. But there's some good information out there, some good like development, internal, personal, and professional. So I would tell anybody, I'm not an advocate. I mean, I'm not a I don't work for TikTok or anything like that, but it's really a good platform. But again, you can definitely connect with me on LinkedIn. I am going to offer this video. You'll be able to watch it for free. It'll be on my page as well under lewanamichelle.com, and that is where you will find personal and professional development, all different types of videos and all different types of information. And you will be able to, just gain access to different resources. So I look for you all there. Sign up, subscribe, and that way you'll get information on different events and new events that are coming up here. I may take a little break here with these next few weeks because of the holidays. However, there's still going to be some stuff out there. And then also look for different resources and information in 2022. So I'm working on that right now. So again, thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. And you all have a great rest of the day, week, wherever you are. Enjoy your life. Bye. Thanks.
Thanks for having me, Lewana. Bye, everyone.
Yeah, bye.